Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Khususan ala sayyid al-rusuli wa khatim al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-asfiya wa ashabihi al-asfiya amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. صدق الله العظيم. There is a consensus amongst the scholars of Al-Islam that the greatest of all creation is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had this beautiful charm to him. And wherever the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went, people were affected by his presence. And there was something about his love that the Prophet ﷺ, when he shared his love with people, they felt as if no one in the world had loved them before the way the Prophet ﷺ had loved them. And this is why the companion, he says, one day I was sitting with the Prophet ﷺ, and as I sat with him, I thought of the time that I had with him. And he's thinking about the moments when the Prophet ﷺ would smile, and the moments when the Prophet ﷺ would speak to individuals with such beautiful attention, and the respect and care the Prophet ﷺ would give to every individual, regardless of their background, their race, their color. And here this companion, he feels he's so close to the Prophet ﷺ. So he takes the courage and he asks, he says, O Messenger of Allah, who is the closest person to you on the face of the earth? And because he was in that zone, that moment, he had benefited so much from the Prophet ﷺ, he felt so close. He was expecting his name. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And then he said, okay, let me try a second time. He said, after Abu Bakr, who is the closest person to you? And the Prophet ﷺ, being honest, said, Umar radiallahu anhu. He said, okay, let me try again. He said, okay, after Umar radiallahu anhu, who is the closest to you? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Uthman radiallahu anhu. He said, after Uthman, and he kept going on and on, and the narration mentions, the narrator himself says, that I asked so many times that finally I thought to myself that I should stop asking because my name won't be on this list. But had he not asked the Prophet ﷺ for the blunt truth, he would have always felt he was the closest to the Prophet ﷺ, for that was a charm of the Prophet ﷺ. And then there was this aspect of the knowledge of the Prophet ﷺ that the students of Islam, the great companions and the teachers of the Ummah, when they sat with the Prophet ﷺ, they couldn't get enough of soaking that information from the Prophet ﷺ. And then there was something about the humbleness of the Prophet ﷺ, that he would be sitting in a gathering and a person would enter into that gathering and he wouldn't be able to even point out the Prophet ﷺ due to his luxurious sitting or his upright, posture. The Prophet ﷺ was very humble in his sitting. A Bedouin would come to Medina Munawwara in the gathering of the Prophet ﷺ, and he would ask, Ayyukum Muhammad? Which one of you is Muhammad? That's an absolutely amazing question. Because the Prophet ﷺ was so humble with himself, yet his humbleness did not make him weak when it was time to strike. The Prophet ﷺ was a courageous warrior. And when you look at all these beautiful characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ, it helps us realize how the Prophet ﷺ was actually able to achieve what he had achieved in a very short period of time. And think about this for a moment. The first revelation comes to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at the age of 40. And he's sitting in this cave, and we've all heard of this beautiful narration many times, maybe in Ramadan or in Al-Jum'ah khutbah here and there, where the Prophet ﷺ is sitting and reflecting, and Angel Jibreel ﷺ comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and he embraces the Prophet ﷺ after instructing him to read, and he embraces him so tightly that the Prophet ﷺ, he felt as if his soul was going to exit his body. And then he releases him and squeezes him again, and this happens 3 times, and thereafter the Prophet ﷺ, he returns back. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. Jibreel alayhi salam, he just enables the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam with nubuwah. He gives the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam prophethood. Such a great day in the life of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is shooken up by this grand responsibility that has just been given to him. And he returns to his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, and he's shaking because of the reality that has struck him. And he says to his beautiful wife Khadija radiallahu anha, why don't you cover me in a sheet and calm me down? And she covers the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And I want you to snap that picture in your mind and keep it there, because at that time there was a 40-year-old man with his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, and they're sitting there side by side, and she's covering him in a blanket, and revelation just starts there, and she's telling him, it's okay, everything will work out. And the Prophet ﷺ is sitting there thinking, how is everything going to work out? I'm a prophet, I'm 40 years old, I don't even know how much time I have left in my life. I'm the last prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have such a big goal ahead of me, such a big mission ahead of me. I have to accomplish so many great things. I have to feed the love of Allah, the Rasul, the Kitab, and so on and so forth in the hearts of all of mankind. How is this mission going to go? And then the Prophet ﷺ, he starts his mission. And the Prophet ﷺ continues on and on and on and on, and he works. And we've heard the narrations of all the difficulty the Prophet ﷺ went through. But summarizing now, let's fast forward a little. The Prophet ﷺ, as we believe, and as I started off the lecture by saying, the highest rank of all creation belongs to who? There's a consensus on that, right? The best of all creation is who? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as he advances in life and as he makes his sacrifices for the sake of Allah, his rank, it elevates and it elevates and it elevates. Until now the Prophet ﷺ is giving the farewell Hajj khutbah in Arafat, and while he's giving this khutbah, according to some historians, there were 60,000 present, some historians 80,000, some historians go as far as saying there were over 120,000 that were present in that sermon of the Prophet ﷺ. And after the Prophet ﷺ finishes his sermon, now think about this for a moment. Think about that first image where it's him and Khadija radiallahu anha. And then you're looking at the end of the story now, and it's the Prophet ﷺ with 120,000 companions. And the rank of the Prophet ﷺ continues to increase and elevate in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving him more and more and more, until the point where now 50 days remain until the Prophet ﷺ passes away. How many days? Roughly 50. Some scholars say 55, 60, 50, around that range. 50 days remain until the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ departs this world, and a very unique incident takes place. And this is a famous hadith which we call hadith of Jibreel. We've all heard this narration, right? It's a very famous narration. If you haven't heard of it, I encourage you to go back home and do some research on it. Maybe ask your local scholars to explain it to you. It's a very beautiful narration. I just want to focus on the opening part of that narration, where now what happens is that there's this anonymous person. He enters into the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ. He steps aside and comes to the front and sits in front of the Prophet ﷺ. His appearance was very unique, very young in his hair because it was very dark, and very beautiful in his garments for they were very white. Respectfully, he sits in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and he sits like a true student sits in front of his teacher, and he's sitting on his knees, and his knees are touching the knees of the Prophet ﷺ. And this person places his hands on his own lap, and then he begins to question the Prophet ﷺ. He asked the Prophet ﷺ how many questions? 4 questions. He asked the Prophet ﷺ 4 questions. And after asking 4 questions, he leaves the gathering. The Prophet ﷺ, he questions Umar bin Khattab, who's the narrator of the hadith, that do you know who that person was? And Umar radiallahu anhu said, the Messenger of Allah, we do not know who he is. The Prophet ﷺ said, that was Jibreel, he came to teach you your deen. So what the scholars, what they derive from this, there are many things that are derived from this hadith, but one beautiful point to focus on from this narration is that the rank of the Prophet ﷺ elevated every day and every day and every day and every day. And as the moments went by, the rank of the Prophet ﷺ only increased. And finally, that one angel who started off when the Prophet ﷺ was 40 years old as a teacher of the Prophet ﷺ, 50 days before he passes away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returns him back to the Prophet ﷺ, not as a teacher, but today as a student. To show the rank of the Prophet ﷺ, that this is the rank of Muhammad ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, when you study his life, you find how the Prophet ﷺ, how did he achieve this rank? How did the Prophet ﷺ go so high? And obviously there was one aspect of the Prophet ﷺ's worship and his knowledge and his courage and all these other great things. But how did the Prophet ﷺ achieve acceptance by the masses? How did the people accept him? And the scholars, they say the reason behind the Prophet ﷺ achieving that acceptance in the masses was actually due to the sacrifice he made for the people. And when you look at the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, they plotted against him. But their plots were no normal plots, they were very great plots. The plots against Islam, against the Prophet ﷺ were so grandeur that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us of those plots in the Quran. Towards the end of Surah Ibrahim, you will find Allah Azza wa Jalla says in one beautiful ayah, وَقَدْ مَكَرُوا مَكْرَهُمْ وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَكْرُهُمْ وَقَدْ مَكَرُوا مَكْرَهُمْ. That indeed they plotted against the Prophet ﷺ. Now the unique thing about this sentence right here, if you look at the Arabic structure of it, in Arabic usually in a sentence we have a verb, a subject, and an object, right? The verb, the doer, and the one who the verb was done upon. Whenever we repeat the verb as a noun and place it as an object in the sentence, in Arabic we call this maf'ul mutlaq. When you take the verb, extract the noun from there, and repeat it in the sentence again as an object, then this gives a very unique meaning to the sentence. It can give one of three possible meanings. And I'll give you an example in English. If I was to say, I hit him a hitting. You guys see that? I took the verb and brought it as an object to the sentence again. I hit him a hitting. What that actually means is that I whooped that guy. I beat that guy silly. You understand? وَقَدْ مَكَرُوا مَكْرَهُمْ means they didn't just plot, they went silly on plotting. They went nuts. They plotted against the Prophet ﷺ on another level of plotting. And their plottings were so great that Shaitan himself would come as a means sometimes to plot against the Prophet ﷺ. This, if you think your Illuminati is big, and if you think your Freemasons are big, give it a break. This was Shaitan himself coming to plot against the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَكْرُهُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jalla is clearly aware of their plotting. وَإِنْ كَانَ مَكْرُهُمْ لِتَزُولَ مِنْهُ الْجِبَالِ. And their plotting won't perish a mountain, but in reality their plotting was so great that had it been plotted against anything in the world, it would perish. But the plotting can't perish a mountain. The scholars say this mountain is referring to the mountain of Islam. Had they plotted against anything other than this jibal, this mountain of Islam, their plotting would have perished that. It would have destroyed it. But what caused the Prophet ﷺ to remain strong on his feet after all the planning they made against the Prophet ﷺ? What was that cause? And then the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the reason why they couldn't beat the Prophet ﷺ, even though he was alone, and the entire city of Makkah Mukarramah was against him, and he was old and they were young, and the Prophet ﷺ had lost his parents and they had their large families. Why they couldn't beat him was because فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ مُخْلِفَ وَعْدِهِ رُسُلَهُ. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla has made a promise. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never go against the promise that He made to His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And what was that promise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. And the remaining of the surah is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And what is that promise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has not abandoned you, neither is your Lord angry with you. Don't think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imagine someone came and told us today that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises He will never abandon you and He will never be angry with you. And that was what was fueling the Prophet ﷺ. The idea that he knew that he was being loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the beauty of love. What love does is that it enables you to go through the most difficult moments in life because you have someone there by your side who loves you. The Prophet ﷺ went through his revelation because he's loved. He was being loved. Who was he being loved by? He's being loved by Khadija radiallahu anha. He's being loved by Aisha radiallahu anha. Maymuna radiallahu anha. And his wives were the people that were there to always care and share and care for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why my teacher, who I studied Nasai from, Sheikh Bilal, he used to say something very beautiful. He used to say, revelation started in the sheet of Khadija and ended in the lap of Aisha radiallahu anha. Revelation started in the sheet of Khadija radiallahu anha. You guys, I just narrated that story when he came down and he said, cover me. And it ended in the lap of Aisha radiallahu anha, where the Prophet ﷺ breathes his last in the lap of his beloved wife, right, radiallahu anha. Which teaches us how the Prophet ﷺ was so attached to his family. And how the Prophet ﷺ had this love bond where the Prophet ﷺ always had some people in his life who were there to care and love for him. And his extended family obviously were the companions. So I want to come back to this point and say how the Prophet ﷺ pushed through all this difficulty. And the kuffar, when they plotted against the Prophet ﷺ, they were very mischievous. I want you guys to understand this. They were very mischievous. There are different types of plots. If I'm planning against you and I want to attack you, one of the obvious ways of attacking you is to go at you on physical. And they went physical on the Prophet ﷺ. How did they go physical? They stoned the Prophet ﷺ. They choked the Prophet ﷺ. They spat on the face of the Prophet ﷺ. He's in sajda in front of the Kaaba. They take a dead animal and place it on his back. And the Prophet ﷺ can't even lift himself up from sajda because of the pain, because of the weight. And the people around him are laughing at the Prophet ﷺ. Imagine that for a moment. You're an outcast of society because of your religion, and you're worshiping your Lord, and everyone there gathers around and they start laughing at you. I'm talking about with noise, ha ha ha. And the Prophet ﷺ is being oppressed, he can't even lift himself up. And one of the people, he runs and tells the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ that your father is being laughed at in the haram right now. And she comes to the Prophet ﷺ, she removes the filth from his back. He finishes his prayer off, and then he sees her crying. He asks her, why are you crying? She says, oh my father, which daughter won't cry after seeing her father being laughed at? And the Prophet ﷺ hugs her and says that for our reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Your reward will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many incidents of them physically abusing the Prophet ﷺ. And then the attacks against the Prophet ﷺ took a different approach, where they emotionally attacked the Prophet ﷺ. You know, emotional attacks are very brutal, and they actually sometimes could be very under the belt, unethical. And they made these unethical, cheap shots against the Prophet. You know, if you ever see in society, someone who can't have children, that's usually something sensitive to them. Yes or no? For the adults, you guys will acknowledge this, probably you realize this. If someone can't have children, that's something very sensitive to them. Is that right or wrong? Extremely sensitive. The Prophet ﷺ could have children, but all of his male children would pass away. All of his boys would pass away. They lived for 1 year, a few months, 2 years, and then they would pass away one after the other. And this was something that bothered the Prophet ﷺ. The reason was because, as any father, he would want his progeny to continue on, and he also wanted his progeny to continue on. But the progeny only continues through sons and not through daughters. And he always had this worry that, oh Allah, I would like for someone to continue my legacy, and I want a son. And the Prophet ﷺ's sons would all pass away. So the kuffar, they took this point and they came to the Prophet. Imagine how cheap of a shot this was. They came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said that you are abda, maqtu'un nasab. You are abda, means that your lineage has been cut off, and no one tomorrow will ever call lineage towards you. There will be no one who will be your son because you don't have any sons. And then they said, look how great we are that we have big families. And this hurt the Prophet ﷺ so much. It hurt him so much that he cried over this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then came to console the Prophet ﷺ. And it's as if any father would come to his child and put his hand on his back and say, it's okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consoled the Prophet ﷺ by saying, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. We have given you in abundance. You're talking about 1 child, 2 child, 3 child. A day will come where there will be 1.6 billion people who will love to be called your sons. Every person will want to be the son of the Prophet ﷺ. Because the thing is that, being a son of someone is not about having a simple blood relation. It's beyond that. Actually, blood relationship doesn't even have any weight in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Quran tells us. What matters most is that spiritual connection that a person has with the other. And even though Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, and Utbah, and Utayba, and these people may have children through their blood relations, but there will be no one who will ever want to be linked back to them spiritually, because they are abtar, and they are maqtu'un nasab. Their lineage has been cut off by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ. Thank Allah, for He has given you an ummah that will be your sons. Wanhar, and sacrifice on behalf of them. Because when you have a child, what do you do for the child? In aqiqah, right? You sacrifice. Allah is saying, go and sacrifice and thank Allah, for we have given you an entire ummah that will be your sons. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights this, that it's not about that blood relationship, it's actually about a deep spiritual relationship. And how so? This is in the Quran, in the story of Nuh alayhi salam. He's conversing with his son was a non-Muslim, Nuh alayhi salam was a Muslim. The sky is pouring down and the water is flowing and it's beginning to flood. And Nuh alayhi salam, he boards his ark with his companions and he meets his son. He says to his son that, Irkam ma'ana, wa la takum ma'al kafirin. Why don't you join us on this ark and don't be with those who disbelieve. And his son was a very materialistic person. He said, Sa'awi ila jabal. You can move on. I'm going to go and take some heat inside the mountains. Because he didn't want to be seen by society as associated with those who are Muslims. You know how we as Muslims sometimes don't like being associated with other Muslims. And he was like that. He didn't want to be seen with other Muslims. So he said, Sa'awi ila jabal ya'simuni min al-ma. I'm going to go over to that mountain there and it's going to protect me from the water. And Nuh alayhi salam is saying to his son, my dear son, stop being materialistic. La asim al-yawm. There is no one to protect you today. Illa min amri Allahi illa man rahim. For the order of Allah, except for the one who Allah has mercy. And while they're having this discussion, hala baynahum al-mawj. A big wave comes. Fakana min al-mughraqin. And he is swallowed inside the water. And Nuh alayhi salam is thinking, he's saying, oh Allah, before the water started pouring when I built the ark, you said you were going to save the believers and my family. And my son is from my family. So this doesn't add up. So he makes a complaint to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says that, oh my Lord, inna bani min ahli, wa inna wa'adaka al-haq, wa anta ahkam al-hakimin. Oh my Lord, indeed my son is from my family. Your promise is the truth. You are the best of judges. This is a very beautiful way of complaining. He's not saying that you did this wrong, you did that wrong, no, none of that stuff. Very simple. Indeed, my son is from my family. Your promise is the truth. Anta ahkam al-hakimin. Similarly like Ayyub alayhi salam. You know when Ayyub alayhi salam fell ill? Rather than going on a long rant of complaining against Allah, he says, Inni masani al-dhur, anta arhamur rahimin. Oh my Lord, difficulty has come onto me. You're the most merciful. You figure the rest out, whatever you want to do with me. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He corrects Nuh alayhi salam by saying to him that, Ya Nuh, innahu laysa min ahlik. Your son was never from your family. Innahu amalun ghayru salih. Because his deeds were not good. It's about that spiritual connection. And these kuffar didn't stop there. They went on forward and they attacked the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ's two beloved daughters were married in the Meccan society. And the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ went to the husbands of the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. And they said to them, please, for our sake, divorce the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. And they asked, why should we divorce them? They said, so that we can cause pain to the Prophet ﷺ. Just to emotionally hurt the Prophet ﷺ, his two daughters were divorced. But with all of this, the Prophet ﷺ, as I mentioned earlier, he just didn't give up. Because he was focused. He was focused. The Prophet ﷺ knew what his struggle in life was. So for those of you that are sitting here, and I want to highlight this before I move forward to the next point. For those young friends of mine and adults that are sitting here who feel life is tough, if you trust Allah, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. It's very hard to explain in words. It's an experience, actually. The world can crumble down on you, and you can feel as if you're stranded in the middle of an oasis, in the middle of a desert where there's no one there. You can't even see the oasis. Forget the oasis here. You're just stuck in the middle of the desert, and you can't see anything. If you trust Allah, okay. Now I want to move forward, and I'm going to take this discussion of ours to another level. Okay, I'm going to up it a little bit. I know I have maybe 5-10 more minutes, so I'm not going to push you guys too long, but I just want to be a little constructive and cover one or two more points. The Prophet ﷺ having a very high rank is a very beautiful thing. But the problem that we have today as Muslims, and this is where our responsibility steps in, because we're talking about learning to love. Yes or no? That's the theme of this whole tour. Learning to love. The question is that where do we as individuals stand in relationship to our love for our beloved Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam? We do realize that loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in reality is actually a component of our faith. For the Prophet ﷺ informs us, one of you can never be a complete believer until I am more beloved to him than his father, his child, and all of mankind. It's actually a key component to our faith, loving the Prophet ﷺ. But what we don't understand is that where are we lost today with our apologetic Islam? Today the Muslims of the West, and in particular I'm talking about England and Canada and America and all these Western countries, we've become so apologetic about our faith. Anytime it comes the moment for us to associate ourselves with the Prophet ﷺ, with his sunnah, we run the other direction. And it's as if it's such a big burden for us to act upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Someone from the media comes and puts a mic in our face, what happens? We start apologizing. We're always saying we're sorry that the Prophet ﷺ did this. We're sorry the Prophet ﷺ did this. And maybe the narration is weak, that's why we're going to explain it this way. We're always apologizing without realizing that there's nothing to apologize over. Our tradition, our sunnah, our beloved Habib ﷺ is most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the companions before loved him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved him. And today we, the people sitting here, have to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you're looking for real love, it lies in loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For the only way to love Allah is through loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why it's so hard for us to act upon sunnah. You know, if I said to you that, you know what, guys, you know, the staircase, is there a staircase? Let's say there's a staircase here, okay? And I said to you, I want you to run up and down that staircase 50 times. What are you going to say next? Why? Thank you so much, right? I was worried you guys are zombies or something, right? Of course, I would ask why. So then I would say in return to you, because I did it. So now what are you going to say to that? So what? Enjoy yourself. You know, why am I going to do it? I don't have to follow you. So there's no reason for you to follow me because I'm a nobody. But if I said to you, the Prophet ﷺ did it now, I'm going to do it right now. Roll these sleeves up and I'm going to run up and down. Because the thing about the Muslim is that our obedience to the Prophet ﷺ is actually based off pure love. And we mimic the Prophet ﷺ based off our real love for the Prophet ﷺ. Someone asked Sheikh Ashraf Ali Thanwi, who was a very good scholar from the Indian subcontinent, someone asked him a very beautiful question. He said, Sheikh, how do I focus on my prayer? Have you guys ever thought of this question before in your life? How do I focus on my prayer? Yes or no? Yes? It's a good question, valid question. He asked the Sheikh, how do I focus on my prayer? So the Sheikh gives a very beautiful answer. He says to him that before you worship, before ibadah comes muhabba, and before muhabba comes ma'rifah. He says, before you worship Allah, you need to first love Allah, and before you love Allah, you need to know who Allah is. It's like going up to some sister on the street and saying, will you marry me? She'll look at you saying, OMG, what are you talking about? I'm not going to marry you. Get out of here. He said, why won't you marry me? I don't love you. I don't know you. She says, okay, I love you. So she says, how could you love me when you don't even know me? What's my name? So it's simple logic that we as human beings use within our society, within our own culture, within our own families, that it's all based on knowing, loving, and then executing. Now let's use that very same example and shift it over to this paradigm here, where Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, in order for us to follow his sunnah, in order for us to emulate him, the first thing we need to do is love the Prophet ﷺ. And the way to love the Prophet ﷺ is to get to know the Prophet ﷺ. So the part of this journey is about us teaching people how to love, different aspects of society. And today we're focusing on loving the Prophet ﷺ. And loving the Prophet ﷺ starts with, first of all, knowing about the Prophet ﷺ. You don't know anything about him, it's very hard for you to claim that you love the Prophet ﷺ. So what I'm going to do in the remaining minutes that I have, with this mic in front of you guys, is I'm going to walk you guys through a quick, 5 to 10 minutes about getting to know the Prophet ﷺ. What do you guys think about that? Good idea? Okay, let's get to know the Prophet ﷺ. And I'm not going to stand here and talk to you guys about his knowledge, or his worship, or his piety, his courage, or his strength. These are all things that we can talk about maybe in another seminar altogether. Today I'm going to walk you through the physical description of the Prophet ﷺ. Who was the Prophet ﷺ? Our youth can sit here and tell you about some soccer player, or some football player, or some rugby player, some basketball player, and walk you through a detailed description. But you ask them something about the Prophet ﷺ, and what do they end up saying? They end up saying that, oh, Shaykh, there's no point knowing it because it's all da'if anyway. Right? What's da'if? What are you talking about? You're da'if. Our tradition isn't da'if. Our tradition is not weak. It's strong. It's solid. It has firm foundation. Our tradition is solid. You don't even know what you're talking about. Compare our tradition of Islam with any other tradition and bring it on. I'm telling you, you won't be able to stand against the tradition of Islam. Because our tradition is solid. Allah promised to preserve our tradition. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr. And dhikr is not only Quran, by the way. When we have a tafsir class, when you guys have a tafsir class, you can ask your teachers to really elaborate on this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed we have revealed the remembrance and we will be the ones who will protect it. And a part of that protection is protecting the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. I tell you honestly, go to any other religion and ask them to give us a lineage of the forefathers of the Prophet. Maybe one father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, and that's the end of it. But when it comes to our tradition, it's so solid and strong that we as Muslims should take pride in learning the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ. We don't only have one father, grandfather, great-grandfather, we have all the way to Adnan, which is like almost 15 to 20 links up from the Prophet ﷺ. And that narration is narrated by Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi in Sahih, authentic narration. Ibn Kathir then takes a narration from there in his history work, Bidayah wa Nihaya, and takes it forward all the way to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then takes it beyond Ibrahim alayhi salam all the way to Adam alayhi salam. Find me one human being whose lineage has been preserved like this. And see, every single detail about the Prophet ﷺ is important to a Muslim. Why is it important to us? Why is the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ so relevant? The reason why it's relevant is because every single one of these people who were from the forefathers of the Prophet ﷺ were actually very great, pious, righteous men of their time. And the Prophet ﷺ, he testifies for them where he says, كُلُّنَا مِن نِكَاحٍ لَا مِن سِفَاحٍ. Every one of my forefathers were born through marriage and inside wedlock. None of them were born outside wedlock. They were all pious, righteous, protected people. Right? Knowing their lineage, that's a good place to start. When we were in madrasa, I remember my teachers, they encouraged us. They said to us that you should learn the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. And if there's one thing I can leave you guys with today, and I'm going to start with a few things, by the way. So if you want to note this down mentally, let's do this. Let's start with at least having the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ off by heart. It's easily doable. In one lecture, I narrated the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ off by heart, and there were young men who were inspired by this. And one guy came to me a few days later, he said, Sheikh, you read it in your lecture that day, I'd like to read it back to you. Can you please listen and make sure I don't have any mistakes? What was the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ? Who were the forefathers of the Prophet ﷺ? Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, ibn Abdul Muttalib, bin Hashim, bin Abd Manaf, bin Qusay, bin Kilab, bin Murrah, bin Ka'b, bin Lu'ay, bin Ghalib, bin Fahm, bin Malik, bin Nadr, bin Kinana, bin Khuzaymah, bin Mudrika, bin Ilyas, bin Nizar, bin Ma'adi, bin Adnan. Till Bukhari, the narration is there. Every person has the ability to memorize that. We talk about the physical description of the Prophet ﷺ. Our young men don't even know what the Prophet ﷺ looked like. How does his physical description mean anything? How could you personalize your relationship with the Prophet ﷺ until you even know what he looked like? The companions state that their faith increased by looking at the Prophet ﷺ. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh is sitting in the gathering of the Prophet ﷺ. He's looking at the face of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ says to his companions, there are three things I love very dearly. I love fragrance. I love a pious wife. وَقُرَّةُ عَيْنِي فِي الصَّلَاةِ. And the coolness of my eyes lies in prayer. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh raises his hand. He says, O Messenger of Allah, if you grant me permission, I would like to share with you three things that I also love. The Prophet ﷺ says, go ahead, proceed. He says, O Messenger of Allah, I love spending my wealth on you. I like going to work all day, working all day, and bringing it all over and spending it on Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, the second thing I love most is sitting here looking at your beautiful face. It's so great. It puts a person at ease looking at the face of the Prophet ﷺ. And he says the third thing is that I take pride that my daughter Aisha is your wife and I am the father of Allah Muhammad ﷺ. Everything about his life, it revolved around the Prophet ﷺ. Aisha radiallahu anha is one day sitting with her friends and they're reading the verses of Surah Yusuf where Allah Azza wa Jalla is praising Yusuf alayhi salam as an honorable angel. And they were talking about his beauty. Now Aisha radiallahu anha, she says to them, you're talking about the beauty of Yusuf alayhi salam? Let me share with you the beauty of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. لَوَامِي زُلَيْخَا لَوْ رَأَيْنَا جَبِينَهُ لَأَثَرْنَا قَطْعَ الْقُلُوبَ عَلَى الْأَيْدِ. The women who mocked Zulaykha, if they were just to see the forehead. The forehead is that part of the face that actually has no features, by the way. If they were just to see the forehead of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they would intentionally carve their hearts up rather than accidentally cutting their fingers. The beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. So don't feel like you need to apologize to someone over your forefathers or your Nabi. You need to be proud of your Nabi. That our Prophet ﷺ was an amazing person in every aspect. If a person looked at him, he would be lost in the beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. Now I'm going to walk you guys through a brief description of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm going to end my lecture. I was told to not go over 45 minutes, which gives me 7 more minutes. So I'm going to end in 7 minutes, inshallah, and that's okay. The companions, when describing the physical features of the Prophet ﷺ, they say, the Prophet ﷺ wasn't too tall, neither was he too short. He was medium in height. The Prophet ﷺ, in his frame, he wasn't too wide, neither was he too thin. He was medium in his frame. The skin tone of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't extremely dark, neither was it extremely white. You know, when a person is extremely white, they look ill. Right? He wasn't extremely white, neither was he extremely dark. He had a whiteness with a red tone to his skin. You know, half of America is sitting on, somewhere sitting in Florida or somewhere sitting in California trying to get that skin tone on a beach. They're sitting there tanning themselves, burning themselves, that maybe I might get that skin. And our beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was born with the beautiful skin tone that he had. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's foot, the companions say, he didn't have a flat foot, he had an arc in his foot. You guys, he didn't have an arc in his foot. Here in America, at an age, every citizen is enrolled into the U.S. Army. Did you guys know that? After a particular age, every citizen of the United States of America is enrolled. I am enrolled into the U.S. Army. If there was ever a call as a citizen, you would have no choice but to go and fight. You guys ever heard of Muhammad Ali being arrested? Why did he get arrested? Anyone know? He refused to go. His name was called. He said, I'm not going to go fight. He was arrested, thrown in jail. Okay. There's one way to get out of being arrested. There's one way of getting out from being enrolled into the army. You know what that is? Having a flat foot. It's viewed as a disability. You guys understand? If you don't have an arc in your foot, you have a flat foot, what is that considered as? So they call it a disability. It means you're not going to be enrolled into the U.S. Army. You actually can be enrolled. Even if you wanted to, they wouldn't take you in. Right? The Prophet ﷺ had an arc in his foot as well. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he walked, he didn't have like a twisted walk where he walked on a portion of his foot or the back or the front part of his foot. He walked on his entire foot. And he was very humble when he walked. And when he walked, the companions say it was as if he was descending from a mountain. The gravity would pull a person down when he descends from a mountain. And that was the humbleness of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ had a very firm and strong walk. He walked with a pace. People would have to get into a lag pace jog to keep up with the Prophet ﷺ. And the hadith of Tirmidhi says, the Prophet ﷺ, these are the words, he wouldn't take small steps, he would actually take longer strides. When he would walk, he would take what kind of strides? Longer strides. His shoulders were broad, which is a sign of being manly. The Prophet ﷺ had light strands of hair on his shoulders and light strands of hair on his upper chest. Between the middle of his chest, he had a line of hair that ended right at his navel. The Prophet ﷺ's chest and stomach were in line. You know, the stomach wasn't bulging out like someone was holding a bowling ball somewhere inside there. The Prophet ﷺ was absolutely beautiful. And I want to tell you guys one thing very quickly. You know this description of the Prophet ﷺ that I'm giving? How old do you think he is when I'm describing him at this point? He's not 20 years old. He's not 20. We're talking about the Prophet ﷺ at the age of 60. According to Imam Bukhari, he's already participated in 27 battles. Okay? 27 battles he's already participated in. He's so handsome and he has these dashing looks. If someone was to stand here and describe the Prophet ﷺ when he was 25 years old, game over. I'm just going to sit down. I'm not even going to try it. He was so beautiful. The Prophet ﷺ at that young age. And here we're talking about him, sawa as-sadri wal-batn. His chest and stomach were in line. And I studied in England for a few years. There's an Islamic school north of here, near a city of Bury called in Ramsbottom. It's a little village. I studied there. And I remember once on holiday, one of my friends took me to his house. So I went to the house. Sorry, is there water? It's pretty black. Is there water? So I went to that house for dinner, and while we were having dinner, in our Indian culture, usually after the meal, they serve... I really need water, I'm sorry. He's going to get some water? Yeah. Okay, let's try again. I'll try to tell you the story, but then inshallah water over here. We've just been talking so much. Buna and myself are both on D-flam right now. We're both taking medication to keep our throats under control. May Allah have mercy on, the scholars who set this up. What is it?
Salt is good.
Salt is good? Oh, mashallah. Jazakallah. Keep that in mind, Buna. We're going to use it tonight, inshallah. All right. So I went to this brother's house who invited me to his house. After dinner, they served tea. And the funniest incident happened in my life. You know what happened? This uncle that was drinking tea, between his sip intervals, he was resting his arm on his stomach. He would take a sip and go, bam, right there. I'd take a sip and put it right there. I'd say, brother, what are you doing? Where's your cake gone? Like, what's this whole thing about putting your hand right there and drinking? And the Prophet ﷺ was so healthy and strong. And the Prophet ﷺ's hands, the companions described them by saying they were medium strong. They weren't thin and bony. The Prophet ﷺ's head wasn't extremely round, neither was it too long. the Prophet ﷺ had an oval head. You can leave it here. I think I'm good right now. The Prophet ﷺ had a wide forehead, which was a sign of being intellectual. The eyebrows of the Prophet ﷺ were the shape of a bow. They didn't join in the middle. He did not have a unibrow. His eyelashes were dark. Batley guys are mad at me. Tip number one, if someone ever coughs and they have a bad throat, never give them cold water. Okay, I hope this doesn't kill my throat, but I'm gonna end this real quick. I'm out of time anyway. So now his eyebrows were the shape of a bow. His eyelashes were very long, dark strands of hair. And his eyes, the white part was extremely white and the dark part was extremely dark. And the companions say this contrast of his eyebrows, eyelashes, the white and the dark, was so perfect and beautiful that when a person would look into the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ, he would forget the world that he lived in. The beautiful eyes of the Prophet ﷺ. During the Battle of Uhud, Abu Talha, he stood in front of the body of the Prophet ﷺ so he could be a physical shield to prevent the arrows from hitting his beloved body. And he expands his body. In some narrations, he was hit by 40 arrows in his back. And each arrow was like a bullet. You know, if an expert fires an arrow, it's like a bullet. He had 40 bullets in his back and they carried his body out of there. He was alive. Someone asked him after they pulled all the arrows out of his body, how did you live? How did you feel all that pain? A normal person would die just of the pain. And he said that when I was standing in the middle, I just looked into the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ and I couldn't feel any pain anymore. You know, prophetic anesthesia. That's what I call it, okay? The Prophet ﷺ's nose, it was long and it had a lift at the end. And there was a light that emitted from there. Lahu nurun ya'luhu. The Prophet ﷺ's cheeks were straight. They weren't too tucked in, neither were they bulging out. They were straight. His mouth, when the Prophet ﷺ smiled, the Sahaba say, everybody smiled. There was no one that was going to sit there and look down. And when he smiled, it was so innocent, it was so beautiful that every person smiled with the Prophet ﷺ. His teeth were so white and perfect that it was as if someone had placed pearls perfectly next to one another. And there was never a bad odor that ever came out of the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ's saliva, it was sweet. You know, the people of Medina Munawwara, they came, they said, "O Messenger of Allah, we have a well and the water is bitter, we can't drink from there. Can you do something about this?" He doesn't take a bucket of Kool-Aid and dump it in there. He takes a part of his saliva and puts it inside the water, sweet. This is what I'm talking about. He was sweet in his words and his saliva was also sweet. And his saliva also was shifa. It also had cure inside there, by the order of Allah, obviously. The famous hadith of Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ, the companions are fighting in the battle of Khaybar. And the Prophet ﷺ calls Ali radiallahu anh to give him the flag so he can take the army into battle. And Ali radiallahu anh says, "O Messenger of Allah, I cannot lead this army because my eye is injured." The Prophet ﷺ says, "Come over here, we'll fix that for you. We'll fix that for you." And he performs what we call laser eye surgery without the laser. He takes his saliva and puts it on his eye. No need for any insurance. Don't worry about the reviews. This is a good surgery that just takes less than 3 seconds. He takes his saliva, puts it on his eye. Ali radiallahu anh says, the other one used to hurt every now and then. This one was set. The Prophet ﷺ, his beard was beautiful and long, and it covered the upper part of his chest. His hair usually came to his earlobes. Sometimes it hung a little beneath, and at times it sat on the shoulders of the Prophet ﷺ, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, even though he was old, close to 63 years old, Anas radiallahu anh narrates that between his beard and his hair, he had no more than 17 to 18 strands of gray to white hair. He was in his youth, even at an old age. I would end with one narration. The Prophet ﷺ, when he passed away, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh was visiting his wife at that exact time outside Medina Munawwara. When he was informed, he came running back to the Prophet ﷺ. And he was hoping that maybe the news that I heard was false and maybe he's still alive. So he comes to where the Prophet ﷺ was lying in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. When he enters, he sees everyone has gathered around and there's a person lying in the middle with a sheet covering the entire body. And he realizes that what he had heard was true. So he sits down next to the Prophet ﷺ. Everyone's silent, they're just crying in their own world. And he sits down next to the Prophet ﷺ. He removes the sheet from the face of the Prophet ﷺ and he says something very beautiful. He says, that when you were alive, you were so handsome and beautiful. And today that you lie here before me, passed away with no soul in your body, you are still so handsome and beautiful. the beauty of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Learn to be confident in your Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Learn to be confident in your faith. Believe in yourself. Learn to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, there was a very famous poet, Iqbal. He said this very beautiful line. He said, regarding poetry, you know, regarding the character, regarding the love and character of the Prophet, he said, do you guys understand Urdu? Anyone here understand Urdu? Yes, no, a little bit. You know, Iqbal, he said something very beautiful. He said, "Husn kirdar se noor mujassam ho ja, ki iblis bhi tujhe dekhe to Musalman ho jaye." That embody within yourself the light of good character. Husn kirdar se noor mujassam ho ja, ki iblis bhi tujhe dekhe to Musalman ho jaye. That even if Iblis was shaitan, you'd say, "What's up with this religion? Hook me up, man. Bring me inside this religion of yours." That's what kind of character we're talking about. Let's embody ourselves with the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's be people of love, because life without love is very, very dry. It can actually lead you to being, you know, a dead soul, a dead body. Do I have time for one more poem, Sheikh? One last poem. It just hit me and I have to say it because otherwise it's going to sting me for the rest of the night. Right? Iqbal said again, we're talking about the importance of love in life. You know, we're talking about learning to love, the importance of love. Iqbal said something very beautiful. He said, "Sajda ishq ho to ibadat mein maza aata hai, khali sajdon mein to dunya basa karti hai." He said that the sajda, the prostration of love is actually the source of true happiness. Sajda ishq ho to ibadat mein maza aata hai. You learn to enjoy your worship when you prostrate in front of Allah with love. Khali sajdon mein to dunya basa karti hai. These empty sajdas, these sajdas that don't have any love of Allah for them, you're thinking about the world and then there is no Allah inside these sajdas. He says, "Log kehte hai ki farz ada karna hai, aisa lagta hai ki koi qarz ada karna hai." People say that it's time for me to fulfill my fard, my obligation. Because you don't have love for Allah, it seems as if you are going back to pay a debt to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he lays a smack down. He says, "Tere sajde tujhe kafir na kar de e iqbal. Tere sajde tujhe kafir na kar de e iqbal. Tu jukta hai kahin aur sochta hai kahin aur." That don't let your prostrations be the mode or the cause of your disbelief. Because you say you're prostrating in front of Allah, but you're thinking somewhere else altogether. Be people of love. Be people of heart. Learn to love, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.